The Trader Cobb Crypto Show, talking business in blockchain.
This show is proudly sponsored by coinspot.com.au, with the largest range of cryptocurrencies anywhere in the Australian market. With an updated verification process, you can now be verified using only your driver's license or passport within seconds. You can instantly deposit funds and instantly start buying and selling your favorite cryptocurrencies in under 5 minutes. CoinSpot are giving away $10 worth of free Bitcoin for each verified user once they make their first deposit. Just go to coinspot.com.au/BTC123.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Trader Cobb Crypto Show. I have got Athanasios, and I'm not even going to try and pronounce your surname, sir. I will let you do that. This man is the founder of Moctius and this Chief Investment Officer at Lapo. Now, I've probably pronounced many of these things very incorrectly, but I do appreciate your time, and thanks for being on the show.
It's a pleasure to be here, Craig, and thanks for the invitation. Just to make your task a bit more helpful, Athanasios Ladopoulos.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen.
I spare you the pain.
You can understand why I had a hard time pronouncing that. There's literally more letters in this gentleman's name than there is in the alphabet. So, mate, listen, let's cut straight to the chase. I want to hit you up. Listen, you've been around for a while. You've got a fantastic haircut, I've got to admit that much. Listen, what brought you into blockchain? And before you answered that, what were you doing prior to coming into this wonderful space that we call crypto and blockchain?
Great. Well, my career is it was in finance and is still in finance, so to speak. I started as an investment analyst with Abu Dhabi Investment Authority, which is one of the largest investors in the world. And then my career involved to join Lazard Capital Market as the youngest director, and subsequently to move into the hedge fund industry until the time where I set up my own hedge fund, and subsequently I sold it to another outfit. During that time, I got very excited from the aspect of technology, education, and finance. This is a marriage of three distinct but equally very important elements of our society. And I set up my edtech companies at the same time, driven by intellectual curiosity mostly. I got involved into the crypto assets world, not so much as a trader, as you are, but mostly from discovering the viability of the crypto economic models that exist over there. So I reviewed many white papers.
Yep.
And tried to understand and make sense of the way companies were seeing the new technology and the business models they were bringing forward, and how does that make sense in the society? Can it really make an impact? Can it change the world? And is it possible to survive through a tough time? And that intellectual curiosity moved to the next stage after identifying a problem where I thought quite a few of these white papers were not really addressing a problem. We're giving a very surface, veneer solution rather than addressing the cause of the problems. I went back to the drawing board, and I developed my own crypto econometric model to create value. And if you like, I can give you an example. Most of the people speak about volatility as the main cause of lack of adoption from the cryptocurrencies. However, they forget that volatility is a symptom.
Yeah. And
the cause is underneath lack of value creation, for example, a fundamental value creation that leads to volatility. And everyone tries to address volatility without thinking of addressing the problem first, and that will impact the volatility itself. So I was excited about that.
So what's the goal? I mean, obviously you're involved. You've had a fairly illustrious career to this point. What is your focus? What's the end goal? What's your vision with what you're working on right now?
I have been always intrigued by chasing the challenging parts. When I started my hedge fund, was a director of dealings, corporate insiders transactions. So I developed a pattern to understand the transactions of senior executives when they buy and sell shares in their own companies. And that was quite challenging. And I started from the winter balcony, as the story goes, before it became what it became. Equally, when I came into the crypto world, I realized that the potential exists there to create a universal currency, something that we rival fiat currencies. But the way the existing cryptocurrencies were set up could not meet that expectation. So I embarked in this challenging target and vision, I suppose, to build this utility and then subsequently currency that will serve the world. And I joined Lapo.io because of the team has got it's an open-minded team, and they have a promising platform, a fintech company. And the idea behind it is that pretty soon we'll be able to launch that service to the world, because it's a service to the world. I mean, the implications are humongous if it is successful, and it will affect economies. It can affect economies, but also on the bottom line of the pyramid, it will affect people's lives.
Okay. So look, I suppose the whole evangelical side of crypto is a wonderful thing to talk about, right? Everyone does. Taking the power back, and, banks. If we actually look at banks and governments, I mean, I'm here in Australia and we have some serious issues right now on our plate, and we have an election coming up in a month for our leader. We have horrible infighting whereby the party decides who's the leader as opposed to the people. There's a lot of issues in Australian politics, and that has been dominant for the last 10 years or so. We actually have a world record here for the most leaders in a period of time. We continue to have a shocker, as we would say in Australia. Now, when it comes to cryptocurrency, we look at this space as something that is for the people, to help us to regain a certain amount of control and to give us our own freedom. Now, what do you think are the hurdles, based on your philosophy? What do you think are the major hurdles to us actually achieving a cryptocurrency or multiple cryptocurrencies that are actually used as currencies? And I'll go on from there. If we look at Facebook, if we look at Starbucks, it makes perfect sense for these types of companies to have their own currency, because they can log who spends what where, and they effectively own an entire economy. But looking outside of that, because that's not what cryptocurrency is about, how do we, what are the issues or what are the hurdles we need to overcome to allow your average Joe on the street to have a benefit from using a cryptocurrency over a fiat currency?
Yes. One of the major issues that we need to address is scalability and acceptance. In order to have a currency, it's a unit of account, but also a unit of transaction, and that involves transact with another party, one or many other parties. So the other parties should feel confident and comfortable and trust that whatever you transact with as a means of transaction maintain its own value. So that comes back to the same word, volatility. A company is unlikely to adopt Bitcoin, for example, because it would have to, a company has to make sure that it knows what it pays for what it's going to deliver, even down the road, a few months down the road, being supplies or anything like this. But also as an employee, if you get paid with an instrument, with a currency that it might go 20% up or down, and because you don't know if it's going to go up and down, most likely is you go and spend your money straight away in order to avoid the drawdown, which will affect you paying your rent. example.
Yep.
And that's exactly what happens with currencies which depreciate. Employees getting paid and they go and spend their money straight away buying goods and services so they don't suffer the depreciation. It's not too far to see why the adoption hasn't been great, because there's no stability. And that brings me to my first initial assumption that Bitcoin was never built to replace or even be placed next to fiat currencies in the long run. It was built to, let's say, because we don't like the system, or the crypto punks.
Alternative.
Yes. They didn't like the banking system or whatever, and they conversed and created a very strong instrument that it would allow them to transact. But in order to go global and scale, you need the trust and stability. And only an instrument that provides stability could approximate or become identical or better of fiat currency. And when I say stability, here is, I think, where a lot of the magic rests. Stability doesn't mean just a stable coin, because when you peg to something like a dollar, a fiat currency, or you peg just a commodity, or you peg to a basket of cryptocurrencies, what you do is you take the volatility of one asset and you transfer it to the other.
To stabilize it, yeah.
To stabilize it. But you take the volatility, which means you would move in peg with the other asset or currency you stabilized. And now I'm going to pose the question to you and your audience. In the long run, pegs between countries, because this is where it goes to when you talk about currencies,
They don't work.
Really done because countries trade goods and services between themselves, and they want to have visibility for the trades they do. So the weakest pegs to the strongest. Mexico pegs to US.
Yeah.
But they trade something. When you have a cryptocurrency which is just a code and pegged to dollar, what is going to happen the next time you have a crisis? And I'm not talking about the stock market going down 10%. I'm talking about a black swan. We had 10 black swans the last 100 years. The peg may dissolve very fast. And when a peg dissolves, the price of the weakest asset that is pegged, I call it asset, but for communicating, not just drops, it gaps down.
It gets eliminated.
And that word that you use, eliminated, is killing trust. You cannot have a currency when the trust is being killed. So the way to counterfeit that, I suppose, to counterfight that, is you have to find a way that you preserve the value of the asset or the currency which is linked to an asset somehow, but also a way to walk away from the one-to-one volatility parity. So you find a way that to peg with something that has got low volatility over the long term, preserves value, which means at least the minimum thing it does is fights off inflation. So it doesn't erode your purchasing power, because at the end of the day, that's what you care, not the number, but how much the number represents in goods and services in your own basket. And also a way that can take the volatility of the market and convert it into real value. So you have an incremental accumulation of value when the volatility is high. So let the others jump around and dance with volatility. Can you grasp the volatility and convert it in real time to a real asset? Then you have incremental value accumulation even in the time of volatility. That's a thing where the secret sauce rests. And that's the excitement that drove me to come into the crypto world and try to solve that puzzle. And I think I have done.
Well, let me stop you right there, because I'm afraid you're speaking too much logic for this show. You are speaking far too much logic right here. There's going to be a lot of crypto enthusiasts going, oh, whoa. But the fact of the matter is that what you've just nailed is exactly right. I've been trading for 13 years. And throughout that 13-year period, there was a 3-year period where it was 2 or 3 years. The euro was pegged to the Swiss. And I know that you're in Switzerland in Crypto Valley right now. It was pegged at 1.2.
Now, as a trader of foreign exchange, that was a really simple trade for me. It was as soon as it got within 10 points of 1.2, I had a buy order. Now, that buy order would sit there for months and months and months. But the second it got filled, the market would move. Now, I had three good trades over probably, well, I had three good trades that were of significant profit to my bottom line over that 2 to 3 year period where the peg was there. Now, I was under no illusion that the peg would not last because when the peg came in, I thought it was a wonderful. We actually spoke within my trading community at the time. We spoke of it and said, look, are the Swiss the smartest people in the world? Because you don't need to go on. If the Swiss come out and say, look, we're going to peg at 1.2, the franc doesn't need to buy all that currency. You just say the name. You say the word, and the entire world will peg you to 1.2. So the Japanese have done it for a long time. They've stimulated their dollar, or their yen. Yen. They've stimulated the yen by buybacks, by purchases, right? Whereas we looked at it and went, well, if they come out and just make a headline and say we're pinning it to 1.2, then they don't need to spend $50 billion to pin that. By good press, they just need to say the word and then it holds. And I'm not sure whether it happened or not. If they did, brilliant. But the bottom line is that peg still failed. And I had a six-figure loss, high six-figure loss. And the only reason I actually made a profit out of that trade, believe it or not, because of the illiquid provider of my account. So I ended up making a few $1,000s when I was down to that 600,000 on that particular trade. And I have never felt my testicles so close to my tongue in my entire life as well. It's never a very nice feeling as a trader where you have the majority of your capital sitting in your account because you know what you're good at. I'm a trader. I make money through trading. So, my money's not sitting in a freaking bank account. My money is sitting in trading accounts to a certain limit, and the rest is sitting in term deposits, i.e. because, there's certain thresholds. But I got that money back, and pegs don't work. They never have. There's never been a single occurrence in the history of finance where a peg has actually worked. And in the case of the yen, I've made lots of money off of any government intervention. Typically, if the government intervenes, and this is what they do it very often, the global economy is far larger than a central economy. So if the Japanese did it all the time, they would bolster their currency. And the second that would happen, the rest of the market would go, sell, poof, back down we go. So it was a sign of easy profit. In our space in cryptocurrency, because it is still a very small market. I mean, if we look at 50 million Bitcoin accounts, aside from the rest of the stock market trading world, I think it's about 1 to 2% of the entire, it's definitely less than 2% of the entire world that invests in stocks and shares. And that's not just in your pension funds or your superannuation. It's deciding to invest, right? It's a decision to do. The fact is that those people, we have only captured 1% of that. The entire cryptocurrency, crypto asset, blockchain, whatever you want to call it, market is absolutely astronomically huge. So you, right now, are working on blockchain companies, right? So what are you trying to do to capture some of that space right now in the different projects you're working on, and what are those projects?
Well, right now with Lapo, other than building a platform, which is a fintech platform that, let's say, frankly, assume that it goes after PayPal services in a way to put some context of the services, but more as well, issuing its own credit card. Now, we embarked in that outrageous concept of building the universal currency. And it goes beyond the trading concept, because if you want to have universal exposure, you need to have something that goes beyond trading and goes into the everyday use.
Yes.
So people should see it and trust it for the everyday use, which goes beyond I'm trading because I expect the instrument will go up
Beyond
20.
speculation.
Exactly, because if you do approach it this way, it's great for a trading instrument, for a trading account, for someone who is a trader or an investor in the long.
0.01% of the world.
Exactly, but it's not for the John and Mary and Chris and Catherine, doing their business. And I believe that's the big market. This is the market where you can do great things with a universal currency. You can bring the world volatility down. You can bring potentially the world inflation uh, in a parity. You can do great stuff for a cross-border trade. It's a lot of things, and you can even, we're not setting ourselves against the fiat money. No sense. No, that's not what we do.
Can't win that one.
We even believe that there can be a way, and Christine Lagarde indicated so as well quite recently, that the private sector can work hand in hand with the existing banking sector, meaning central banks, where part of the operations are kept within a central banking system to ensure anti-money laundering, KYC, and actually traceability of some transactions, while some part of the monetary policy is given into a more open to the world system where you don't use interest rates to manipulate and you possibly you target pricing stability rather than inflation. That's not Lagarde's statement, that's my statement, just to clarify the last one. Because what really John cares is his perception of how much money he will be spending for his family today, next week, next month, 2 years from now, 5 years from now. Yeah. So maybe price stability is more important than chasing this 2% inflation target, which when you deviate substantially from that 2%, that means you have to take punitive action that can slow down economies and make painful sacrifices in order to go back to that target. Does Mary and John care about the 2% inflation? They care about what is in their basket and how much does it cost. So I think maybe it requires shifting the focus as well. And a stable currency could do great things. A currency with stability behind it, not necessarily a stable currency as per se. And also central banks can even at times of uncertainty use the proxy of a stable currency to, let's say, this outrageous idea, provide funding to the accounts of the poor people, so to speak, to smoothen the pain of a decline. Let's put it this way. But absolutely. On the other hand,
I understand
it stabilizes the system. When you know that your currency doesn't go up and down, you don't have depreciation, which makes import of goods very expensive, which means you import inflation into your economy. So I'm a proponent of a universal currency that sits on the board with some of the fiat currencies and that let the world choose.
But how does it work? I mean, look, at the end of the day, we need the public to buy into this, okay? Now, of course. I know I'm a 35-year-old man, do my thing. My father's retired now. He's 64 years old, all right? And my father still, I mean, my dad's never known what I've ever done. He thought I was a drug dealer when I was in London because I would work 3 hours a day. I'd make enough money to do what I had to do, buy things and travel around the world and do all this sort of stuff. Just because my father's a builder, right? He doesn't quite understand it. Now, we created a course, which is free, totally free, tradercobb.com/free tools. And it's to help people to understand what this space actually is, because I've found a lot of people find it so much easier to bury their heads in the sand. And let me give you some statistics on burying your head in the sand. Burying your head in the sand is really easy because you don't have to fucking care. Oh, excuse my French. I didn't mean to let that slip out. But you don't have to care. You don't have to learn. No education required. But if you actually go back and look at the facts, over the last 10 years, the global top banks have paid $168 billion in fines. That's for money laundering. That's for ripping people off. That's for doing the wrong thing. The GFC, the global financial crisis, which made me as a trader, I did phenomenally well throughout that period. As a trader, I did, because markets fall hard and they go up. What that happened was that no one went to jail. The people that caused this and caused, fathers, mothers, grandparents, children, they went bust. They lost everything in their pension funds. Their retirement went from rosy to nothing. Not a single person was put in jail. Bernie Madoff was 2 years after the GFC. He was strung up as the worst thing ever. He wasn't the worst thing ever. Yeah, sure. He was horrible. He did bad things, but he wasn't the worst. He was the poster child for all that bad. There was a lot of people that literally, and I'm talking literally, walked out of that boardroom onto their yacht, c'est la vie. I am out. That, to me, where we are in our global economy, especially in the Western world, right now, debt levels are the highest they've ever been. Now, back then, it was caused by debt. A lot of the debt was based upon asset-based debt. So property, subprime mortgages, what caused the collapse to a certain extent. Irresponsible lending practices. Now, I don't think we've learned from that. If you look at credit card debts, if you look at personal debts, if you look at the sorts of money that you can get right now without having too much for you, they've packaged it, or they've repackaged it in a different way. As we saw in the subprime, the things were being packaged as A's, A+, A-. And even S&P, who's a ratings agency, came out and said, oh, yeah, we made some mistakes there. It seems like a massive corrupt boys and girls club of the higher echelons, right? Now, to wrap that up in a bit of glad wrap and put that to the side, what we have in digital assets, cryptocurrency and peer-to-peer, is the ability to really avoid that, because we are responsible for what we do and how we transact. Now, I see that as the future of our digital asset space, our cryptocurrency, blockchain, whatever you want to bloody well call it. Blockchain's an amazing technology, but the biggest disruptor is the fact that banking has not changed in over 100 years. If there has ever been an industry to be disrupted, there needs to be an Uber. It's the taxi world for the banking sector. I don't know who's going to win. I don't know how it's going to come. And I'm not a Bitcoin maximalist. I'm an investor. I'm a trader. I'm a realist. I don't know if Bitcoin is going to be the global currency, but I tell you what, it sure as hell gives an opportunity for you to actually step outside of the norm and investigate some of the other options available. And the more people that investigate those options,
Correct.
the more understanding they'll have of that. You know what? We don't need this central bank bullshit that is all about impoverishing poor people and making the higher levels very, very wealthy. That's why I'm here.
Yes. Bitcoin was the man who opened, the man quotation that opened the door.
Pandora's box.
Well, Pandora's box. The question is, would it be standing there a few years down the road? Maybe yes, maybe not. Who knows? I mean, nobody knows. Nobody holds a crystal ball, that's for sure. My call would be that it will still be around because it has got the first mover advantage at this point. It has created a difference between the rest. However, when we reach the tipping point of perception or adoption of cryptocurrency as an alternative currency, not just as a trading instrument, then I think it would be something else that it will take the leadership that will suit better to the common people and the businesses of this world. It will give the certainty, the security, the flexibility, the scalability, the trust, the preservation, the protection. And if you want to put it in one word, it will not have that volatility as everyone talks about volatility, and I understand up and down. Let's put it this way.
Last question. Last question for you. Last question, right? What would you say? I've got young kids. and I know you have too. What would you be saying to a 12 or 13-year-old who asks you about cryptocurrency? If a 13-year-old comes up to you and says, "What's the future of money?" What would your advice be?
Well, money is an instrument that is expressed through what we know as a currency. And money has evolved as the society of humans has evolved. Right now, we are in a paper society, a coin society. But let's throw the ball a few steps even further.
Do it.
If we believe that we will be a very strong race and at some point we will also conquer the moon and Mars and whatever it is, I find it unlikely that you will travel to that places, or they will travel in some generations carrying paper money and coins. So in other words, it's an instrument that it would, if it hasn't already, is very close to concluding its life cycle and will be replaced by something else. And most likely the something else is a digital instrument. So I would say that, keep your head up. It will be probably digital currencies ahead, and rest assured that you will have them with you, and, be ready, be prepared, be able to navigate yourself around.
Keep an open mind, keep educating, keep reading, and keep smart. Mate,
Exactly.
Listen, I want to allow the viewers and listeners to find more information about what you are doing. So where would they find that information?
They can they can go to the company website, www.lapo.io, or they can find me in LinkedIn under Athanasios Ladopoulos.
lapo.io?
Yes.
lapo.io. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been an absolute pleasure having the man with the longest name in the world, Athanasios Ladopoulos.
That's correct.
Is that right?
Yes, indeed.
All right, my man. Listen, it's been an absolute pleasure talking with you. Thank you so much for your insights. I would like to talk to you again down the track. I think it's a fascinating space, and you ticked a few boxes for me, my man. So, ladies and gentlemen,
That
listen.
would be a pleasure.
Hear what he has about. And let me give you one more little snippet of information. This gentleman that I've been speaking to for the last 20-odd minutes had his first business at 7 years old. I had my first at 6 years old. We did very similar things. We are cut from the same goddamn cloth. So if you like a bald man with a good smile, this is the man you got to listen to as well. We are much the same people. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much for your time. Ladies and gentlemen, Trader Cobb here. Have a fantastic evening, day, morning, wherever you are.
See you soon, Greg. Thank you very much.
Bye for now.
This show is proudly sponsored by coinspot.com.au, with the largest range of cryptocurrencies anywhere in the Australian market. With an updated verification process, you can now be verified using only your driver's license or passport within seconds. You can instantly deposit funds and instantly start buying and selling your favorite cryptocurrencies in under 5 minutes. CoinSpot are giving away $10 worth of free Bitcoin for each verified user once they make their first deposit. Just go to coinspot.com.au/BTC123. Views are of the advertiser, not Trader Cobb or the audio presenter.